Hi everybody, super excited to be here. My name is Carmen. I'm the founder of Cocoa Ventures. We're a pre-seed seed fund based out of London. And basically what we say is we were VCs for many years. We now invest like angels. So we're VCs turned angels that become the in-house VC for founders. So I have this big theme around like how to hack your first round of funding. And here my colleagues were kind enough to agree to be on stage and happily be grilled. So we will make sure that like we get the most out of them. And let's start by letting them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Yuval Avni. I'm the co-founder of Swan Venture Factory, which is a fund here in Madrid. We just raised fund number 2. We invest in early stage B2B tech. And in my other hat, I'm the managing partner and co-founder of a fund in Israel, which is called Crescendo Venture Partner.
Hi everyone, I'm Etienne Guillard. I'm the head of ventures at Manatech in Miami. I have been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, raising funds from business angels. Then I have been a business angel myself, and now I'm head of ventures in Manatech. We want to invest in Latin American companies to help the integration of the ecosystems in Latin America.
Hi, I'm Javier Juste. I'm also serial entrepreneur as well. I founded several companies. Right now I'm selling some of them. I also became a business angel as well. And right now I'm living in Mexico City. We have a venture capital there called GP Compass. And basically we invest in Latin American companies and companies that they want to go to the US or either to Europe.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a principal at NFX. We're an early stage fund based in the Bay Area in Israel. We invest in companies among different sectors globally, in marketplaces, AI, and fintech mostly. And really happy to be here with all of you.
Super. Okay, so let's do it. So the first thing I always tell founders who are thinking of fundraising is that when you start fundraising, this is a process. You need to get onto execution mode and think about it like a B2B sales funnel, basically. So you need to feed the funnel and then get people down the funnel or out of the funnel as soon as possible. And so I think it will be very helpful to hear from you, how do you think it's best to approach a VC? Like if you're a founder and you need to figure out if a VC is suited for you and how to get to them, what do you recommend?
So first of all, I don't consider them like a B2B sell, but rather like dating. So yeah, so the main thing you need to achieve is not the check at the end, but rather the next date. So I think when you are meeting a VC, what you should get is the next meeting, because it means you're in the process.
Down the funnel, exactly.
Yeah, down the funnel, but this is what you need to aspire. You need to aspire for the next meeting rather than just try to see the end, whether they will be correct to the end or not. And during this process, I think the pre-qualification is very important. And the best thing to do is, first of all, to ask other people that deal business with this fund and the fund itself, what are their interests, what they're looking at, not to spend time and money just on conducting some discussion with them that eventually will be for vain. So I think that's very important, and just make your homework like the fund itself make homework on you, and doing due diligence, you should do the other way around.
I totally agree.
Yeah, so I think we have to differentiate if we are talking about business angels groups or VCs. If you go for a VC, as we said here, make sure that you are inside the thesis of that fund, you have the right metrics, and don't lose your time if you are not at the right stage. It doesn't make sense to pitch to someone that is not going to invest in you because either you don't have the metrics or you don't have the kind of vertical or business that might be interested. If you go to a business angel group, because you are at a lower stage, or earlier stage, then it's a quite different game, because you are not selling your metrics. You are not selling what you have done in the past with what you have achieved, but what you are going to do with your company. So don't go first talking about I have a business idea. That's wrong. Don't stop like that. Never. Always talk about there is a problem and I have a solution to that problem, and start from there. And then you can catch the attention potentially of that business angel because he likes the space or he knows about the space, and always ask for feedback. Don't ask for money. If you ask for advice, you will get money maybe. If you ask for money, you will get advice. So choose what you want.
Exactly, and actually, I totally agree. But key thing you've both talked about: do the work, pre-qualify, absolutely, and also how to. But how do you find, like, how do you get to them? So once you've done the work, you know that you do a lot of network effects. It is NFX. Like, how does a founder get to you?
So, well, first of all, I would like to do a plug for a platform that NFX built that's called signal.nfx.com. And I mean, I always recommend any founder asking me, like, starting this journey, I always recommend them to go there because it's a platform that has like a lot, like most of the investors in the world are there and allows you to filter by sector, by geo, and so on. So I will start making that list. And I think the next natural step after you have that list that hopefully it's long, because the reality is that you're going to get a lot of no's as a founder, and the longer your list, the better are you going to be handling your own psychology going through those no's. I think it's important to like work with abundance of options. And the next step is really trying to find if you have any people in common with those investors. I mean, if you need to put yourselves on the shoes of the investor on the other side, and the reality is that as an investor, you are usually bombarded by requests, and you are always having to answer the question of like, where is worth spending my time? Is this opportunity interesting or not? And sometimes you need to be making these decisions on like, should I take this call with very little information? And a warm intro goes a long way. So I will start trying to, find who are these people, and then contacting these people, trying to get a warm intro. If you don't have, I mean, you're not going to have warm intros with everyone. So in that case, it's really working, like, it's a sales process. I agree with Carmen. So really working on what's going to be like that cold email that you're going to send and that's probably one of the most important emails that you're going to send, and needs to be very succinct. You need to test it out many times. I would recommend also talking to friends that have been founders and have gone through this process before, and getting their feedback. And yeah, reach out cold when you don't have an option. But that's the first step.
I think that's actually absolutely key. And I know that VCs and business angels, everybody gets a lot of criticism for the fact that we maybe don't reply to all emails, and like people don't get response. Like, we can all discuss whether it should be that, it should be not. The reality is we get hundreds of them a month. And so as a founder, you need to know that so that you can hack the system, and you need to do it in a way that allows you to break through the noise. So do not draft emails that are like, it takes 10 minutes to read, to understand. Like, be super succinct, be super concise. I need to read it like that and see what you do and why it's exciting in 2 minutes. So on that, any other no-goes?
Yeah, if I might, I agree with all the different hacks, but I'm going to give you also another key that is super important. For me, one of the keys is that you don't need to look for money whenever you need it. Do it like 1 year before, because the best thing for a VC or for a business angel, you don't want their money because you don't want them to feel that you need the money. You want to create FOMO in that venture capital or that business angel. So you just start contacting that venture capital or business angel 1 year in advance, and just asking for advice, not for money, and just telling to them, you know what, I know you invest in this kind of companies. I'm not looking for money right now, but maybe in the future I will need it. I think it's good that we know each other. Here's my information. And then 3 months later or 6 months later, they will see your growth. They will be interested on you 100%. Because many times, what venture capitals or business angels, what we do is we meet with a company, and then we wait for 2-3 months or whatever, and then we see the growth. And we have seen how they've been evolving in the last month. And that's super important. If you create that relationship in advance, then you have 50% of the job already done. Yeah? So I think for me that's super important.
Totally agree. And so now you've found relevant VCs, you've qualified them, you've managed to reach out, hopefully with warm intros, and you get that first meeting. You might be needing the money shortly, hopefully not. Hopefully you have some runway, you can build some momentum, but you have that first meeting, and then the VC says they're gonna get back to you in a week, and then it's been 2 weeks and you haven't heard back from them. How do you read VCs, or business angels? Like, what's the kind of unsaid and body language to know if like somebody's interested or not, and how should founders react to that?
So I think first of all, you have to remember that it's much easier to hear a yes from a VC than rather than a no. VC don't say no, usually they try to keep you in the process because something might change, but if it's a yes, they progress much faster. So if you had a meeting with the VC and you didn't hear from him for a month, most probably it will be a no. The likelihood that you fell between the chairs and he forget about it, but it's still interesting for him, I think it's less likely. So on one hand, you want to get an answer and you're entitled to get the answer, and usually, at least in my group, we try to not just give an answer, but give a reason for the answer as well. But again, we try not to say no as well. So say maybe it's not a yes now if you do that and that. But so I think the more important thing is to read whether you are really interesting, and if not, let it go, because otherwise you're just losing points for the next round.
So I think this is key, and here I would agree with the dating. I actually believe that getting investment from somebody is not even dating, is having a baby, because getting somebody out of your cap table is more difficult than divorcing somebody. But that aside, going back to the dating theme, I agree. There's a fine line between an investor knowing that you execute, to be like you regularly might send updates and that you're on top of things and you're like persistence, you have hustle, you have grit. And there's a fine line between that and stalking, feeling like, and if you don't read interest, like it also doesn't show a lot of kind of self-awareness, common sense, commercial sense if you keep like chasing people, asking somebody for lunch, for dinner, when they're not even replying to your email. So in that, think about it a little bit like dating. You wouldn't like follow somebody who's not responding to your WhatsApps. So I think read the room is very important to then build that momentum and like execute on it.
May I add one more thing which is connected to what we spoke before about how to approach? I think don't be lazy on one hand, but don't exaggerate on the other. So for instance, I'm getting emails all the time from people that got some kind of a list, and you can see that they don't really read who we are because they have my other partner name on the email they're sending to my email. So they didn't make homework. They just got a list for somewhere, buy the list or I don't know what. So by definition, if I see that, it's lazy. The same goes with ChatGPT. It's some people that use ChatGPT to send an email to an investor but doesn't do only copy-paste so I can see ChatGPT because there is a shading behind. It's the same. It means you're lazy. Don't be lazy. That's very important.
See, and to follow up on it, I think the key takeaway of this is every interaction with a VC, they are DDing you. The same way, by the way, that you should be DDing them. But what other things kind of do you...
Yeah, I would like to come back also to the previous question about how to raise your first check. No? We haven't talked about the incubators, accelerators, or the business angel groups where you can pitch, participate to all the pitch contests you can, apply for everything. And then you will decide if you are accepted, and you may want to see if it makes sense for you at that moment, but really apply to everything, just be there. Just like when you are dating, and if you are sitting on your couch,
there are different styles of dating.
No, exactly. No, but if you are sitting at home, it's going to be very complex. If you are not clubbing a little bit or going to parties or to dinners, you are not going to have any new relations. No. So because if we are talking about the first check, VCs, it's a different game always, because it's suppose that you have been through the friends, family, and fools, and then we have the business angels, and then you have the VCs. So there is different stages. So
I wanted to add on some of the things that have been said here about like how to read a VC in terms of like, okay, how to know if the person is interested or not. I think something important to keep in mind is that a VC, if she or he doesn't need to make a decision right now, most likely is going to choose to wait, because time is value for a VC, because it's more time to get to know the company better, try to see how things are going. So I think one of the hardest things, but most important things as a founder is to create a sense of urgency so the other person feels a need to make a decision, right? And that can be done in a few ways. So on one hand, I agree with you that you need. It's important to have built the relationship before for a bit, but I think you either should be raising or not raising at any given time. So you can be building relationships, but in that period, you should be very clear that you are not raising. And the moment you start raising, it should be with some sort of timeline in mind that is also communicated to every VC that you're talking about. And finally, I would say the hardest check or the hardest commitment is going to be the first one. Once you already have like a first person making a decision, it's going to be easier to get others to make a decision because then there's like a reason to move. So yeah, you need to really focus on that first commitment.
Totally agree. That's why it's like you need to get onto execution mode, and when you're racing, you're like full-time racing, and that's why also it should be limited because it's time away from the business. But try to avoid being in the middle of the tennis court, like racing, not racing, and to your point, and I agree, and this might vary depending on how competitive the ecosystems are, but for example, like it is good to keep relationship with investors. It's good to like let them see how you're like executing, but do not speak to 15 investors in 2 weeks, say that you're not raising, because the market speaks like we speak all the time. So like if I've spoken to somebody and Anna has spoken to, they're raising. And if you're raising in the market's mindset, but you don't actually close a round in 2 months, that actually really turns against you. So this momentum, again with the dating, you also don't want to be the most available like person. Like there is something like human nature, and this is very human nature, makes you more wanted the harder it is to have you, right? And you need to play with, I'm hard to get, not so hard that it makes no sense for me to try. If you're a Series C company, you're out of scope for me, I won't go for it. But hard enough that I feel I want you even more. So that balance, it's hard to strike, but it's important. So basically, we've got to that first meeting. They've actually got back to us. And the thing has progressed, and now we're thinking about what terms, like how to think about actual terms, right? We always say that, like, in fundraising, it's a little bit like optimizing for the Holy Trinity. This makes sense, like size of the round / money for the business, minimizing the dilution of the founder, and then there's always a stake that actually the VC, business angels less, are gonna need. So let's start by size of the round. How should founders think about the size of the round? How much money should they be raising, especially in this market?
The money they need to get to the next round. So they should make a calculation about, so in 18 months, in 2 years, I'm going to raise my next round. What kind of metrics should I have to be able to raise that next round? And what do I need, how much money do I need to get there? And then, because we have to prepare always having in mind the next round. So that's, I think, the best way to go.
And when you think about, because sometimes, especially the earlier stage, it is hard and in this market, we don't know how Series A prices. We don't know what are the metrics. We don't know how Series B prices. So what about thinking about also overlaying like a time that you can quantify, like in months, in years, like how much runway do you recommend a founder to have for a business?
I would recommend from 18 months to 2 years.
Yes.
That would be more or less it, and I agree that how much money do you need to get to the next milestone should be where you should start. But after that, you should probably also check what are the averages of like the rounds that are being raised in any current market environment, because like if we're like in a bull cycle, it's different than if we're in a bear cycle, and that's a reality. So that's also gonna determine how much you're gonna be able to raise and how much you're gonna be able to accomplish on the next round. And ideally, when you do your financial model as well, thinking about how much money do you have and how far it will get you, ideally it gets you to where you want to be 6 months earlier than having to raise the next round, because it's not like if you are getting there and then you need to raise when the money is gone, then it's going to be very hard. And again, back to the being in a power position, if you don't have money and you're going to run out of money, you're going to have to take any terms, and it's going to be a bad situation.
That's absolutely key, and it's very important. When people think of 18 months of runway, like you need to think that 6 months for raising, right? So 18 months plus 6, because if you just do 18 months of the business, you have 12 months to build. So like that is actually quite important to think about.
And especially that 6 months or that 18 months, 24 months, whatever, you need to keep the relations with the other VCs and with the other business angels that they didn't go into that round, because you might need the money that they have for the following round. So I think that's important to keep that relation and to show to them, like, that's my growth, we're improving this and we open this new market, we are growing, we close our first financing round or second or whatever that we gave to you, and then you show them your track. I think that's super important.
Are we running out of time? Okay, so then last question for everybody, like a flash question, is like, if you could tell one thing to founders on how to hack a VC or a business angel, what would that be?
So I think the best one is, again, you need to like the person, because as you said, it's like having a baby, and so if you like the person, most likely there is the likelihood he will like you. So don't try to knock on the doors that you don't like them.
Be nice with everyone, because you never know what's going to happen, so be nice.
I would say that for the startups that are in Europe, they need to take advantage because they are in Europe. For example, in Latin America and many other countries, there is no availability to multiply the money that you have from the VCs or the business angels. Here in Europe, we have a lot of aid. If you are investing in AI or tech or wherever, you can take money from different governments and you can multiply that money that you got from the private investors.
In my case, I would say keep in mind that at the other end there's a human with his or her own psychology, and try to play with that. And the reality is that VCs go from like feeling FOMO, like fear of missing out on something, to what we call false, that is fear of looking stupid. So we're always gravitating in the two things, kind of like on one hand we don't want to miss out, but on the other hand we don't want to invest in something that it's not going to work and it's going to make us look stupid at having made a bad decision. So trying to optimize all the conversations or all the materials you build with the two things in mind, I think it will be very good.
This is a people's art, so play with EQ, and it's the best way to hack the system.